Let us continue, insha'Allah ta'ala, in the sins of the body. And we are still under the sin of fleeing from the battlefield or fleeing from the march, going AWOL, absent without leave, absent without leave. Being an absconder, there's other words too. Who's the one who abandons his post? Anyway, so continuing from where we left off, the author said, فَالْمَقْصُودُ الْأَصْلِيُّ مِنَ الْجِهَادِ. The author says, فَالْمَقْصُودُ الْأَصْلِيُّ. Subhanallah. قال المؤلف رحمه الله. The author says, فَالْمَقْصُودُ الْأَصْلِيُّ مِنَ الْجِهَادِ حِفْظُ دِينِ الْإِسْلَامِ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ حتى لا يفتنهم الكفار. The fundamental point of jihad is preserving the religion of Islam for the Muslims so that the disbelievers do not make a fitna for them, a tribulation for the Muslims. وَلِنَشْرِ دِينِ اللَّهِ, and also for spreading the religion of Allah. وَلِإِنْقَاذِ الْكُفَّارِ مِنَ الْخُلُودِ الْأَبَدِيِّ فِي النَّارِ رَحْمَةً بِهِمْ, and to save the blasphemers from an everlasting stay in hell as mercy to them. Yani doing them a big favor, but they don't see it that way. Even the apostate, when he gets executed for his apostasy, he is executed because if he is left to stay as he is, his blasphemy will increase and then his torture will increase. Subhanallah. So he's executed. This will cut off having more torture. Allahu Akbar. But what he's going to receive is going to be excruciating, though. There's not a single bit of it that he could withstand. ثم وافق السيد قطب في تفسيره الفاسد هذا أناس من أهل هذا العصر. Now furthermore, some people from this time have agreed with Sayyid Qutb in this corrupt tafsir of his. كيوسف القرضاوي, like Yusuf al-Qaradawi, ومحمد سعيد رمضان البوطي وفيصل مولوي والسيد سابق وسعاد, I don't know what's this name here, Maybar, I don't know, وعمر خالد وغيرهم. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. These names I don't know much about. When I studied overseas, the sheikhs, they taught us about some of these things, some of these ones. At the time, I wasn't really interested. Subhanallah. Yani, at the time, I didn't know them. I didn't know them to have any presence in America, for example. I didn't see they are like any big or significant people. So their names would get mentioned and I would hear about them, and I never really studied their cases strongly. I have I have the documents that were compiled about these ones, but I didn't study those things. So, okay. The footnotes are not very informative here, so it's okay. So, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Buti, here's his name a lot, Faisal Mawlawi, Sayyid Sabiq, he's the one who did that book, Fiqh Sunnah, and he said that a person won't go out of Islam unless he meant to do so deliberately. Amr Khalid, his name I heard, I don't know what did he say other than this here that the Sheikh accuses him of, and others. So what did Sayyid Qutb say here? He said that the Muslims only engage in jihad defensively, not offensively. So the Sheikh calls him out for this cowardice here. And he says that there are a group of people in our time who have agreed with him here. Yani, this Islam only, the Muslims only perform jihad defensively, not offensively. This is mudahana. Mudahana. This means flattering others. That's the nicest way I can put it. To flatter others. And I could put it in other ways too. It's not a good thing. It's for patronizing others. فَإِنْ قَالُوا, now if they were to say, أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ قَالَ لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ, didn't Allah say what means there is no compulsion in the religion? وَقَالَ وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ جَمِيعًا أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ وما كان لنفس أن تؤمن إلا بإذن الله. That's the 99th and 100th verses of Surah Yunus. And the first ayah I recited for you is the 256th verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. So if they said, if they cited these two citations here to prove their point, which means, the second one means, and had your Lord willed, everyone on earth would have believed entirely. So, are you to compel the people to be believers, O Muhammad? Is it you who will compel the people to be believers, O Muhammad? Had your Lord willed, everyone on earth would have believed entirely. So is it you who will compel the people to be believers, O Muhammad? وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تُؤْمِنَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. No soul shall believe but by God's permission. So the Shaykh says, if they produce these verses, قُلْنَا, we say, قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, when Allah said, لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ, which someone would translate as, there is no compulsion in the religion. Fihi aqwal. There are sayings about this. Uh, so now imagine yourself talking to some person other than these named ones, but maybe he's under their influence, or maybe he came to the same conclusion they did by reading on his own. And then he produces these ayat for you. When you say to him, there are sayings about this, then it's likely he won't even know what you are saying, what you are getting at. Do you mean there are sayings? In his mind, he just gave you Quran. And maybe he doesn't even know Arabic, and he'll just tell you, didn't Allah say there's no compulsion in religion? And if you were to say to him, there are sayings about this, he won't know what you are saying. Meaning, there are interpretations reported about this verse. That's what it means. منها أن هذه الآية نزلت في بدء الأمر. Amongst the sayings about this verse that someone would explain as there is no compulsion in the religion is that amongst what was said is that this was revealed in the beginning, in the beginning of the dawah, in the beginning of the affair. Yani, you know what that means. In the early stages of Islam, the early days, قبل أن يأتي الإذن بالقتال, before the permission to fight came. لأنه في ذلك الوقت كان الرسول ممنوعا من الدفاع عن نفسه. Because at that time the messenger was forbidden from defending himself. وعن أتباعه بالجهاد. بالجهاد. Okay, there's qualifier. He was forbidden from defending himself and from defending his followers by jihad. Uh, that's important qualifier there. لأنهم كانوا ضعفاء, because they were weak then. Yani they would have been overrun. ثم بعد 13 سنة, but then after 13 years جاءه الإذن بالقتال, the permission to fight came. Then you got to think about what that means, what that implies. The permission to fight came. So, in somebody's mind, this means just for defense, but that's not the case. As if a person would be a hadith denier if he thinks this is only for defense. He doesn't know the seerah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He doesn't know that the Prophet sent out many platoons. Sent them out. That's not defense, that's offense. Yani, so if that's offense, he got permission to fight, that's number one. And number two, offensively, then if a person thinks, well, then he can see where that goes, what that leads to. So what are they going to do? Just go fight them. Start a fight with them, beat them, and just leave them beaten and come back home, and that's it. And they'll never mess with us again. They're going to know better. That's it. No. Muslims have goals. Their top goal is spreading their religion. They didn't just go there to fight and come back home. قال Allah Ta'ala, says Allah, exalted is He. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا. Permission has been granted to those who have been fought, for they have been wronged. They have been transgressed against and oppressed and persecuted. Now they have permission. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. And indeed, Allah, over their victory, over granting victory to the believers, is indeed powerful. Interesting how Kafir would also criticize Islam and say Islam was spread by the sword. But I never heard a Kafir talk about how it was in the first days of Islam, when the Muslims were weak and they were not aggressive, and what the kuffar were doing to them for years and years and years. I never heard a Kafir complain about that. فَنُسِخَتْ تِلْكَ الْآيَةُ بِهَذِهِ الْآيَةِ. What's the point here? That verse, لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ, there's no compulsion in the religion, was abrogated by this verse. Permission has been granted to those who have been fought, for indeed they were wronged, oppressed, persecuted, violated, transgressed against, etc. They did very bad things to the Muslims. So you would tell that person, this, amongst what you can tell that person is, this ayah is abrogated, but you need to have your proofs. So memorize the ayah. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا. Even if just that much you memorize, you can prove your point with that. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا. Permission has been granted to those who have been fought, for they have been wronged. What's that permission? The permission to fight. So you say this ayah that you are bringing is abrogated by this ayah, which is the 39th verse of Surah Al-Hajj, about the permission being granted to those who were fought. فَنُسِخَتْ تِلْكَ الْآيَةُ بِهَذِهِ الْآيَةِ. And so that verse was abrogated by this one, وَآيَاتِ الْقِتَالِ الْأُخْرَى, and also by the other verses of fighting. All the other verses of fighting Yani the verses of fighting abrogate the verses that forbid fighting. فمعنى الآية لا إكراه في الدين. So the meaning of this verse that one wants to explain as there is no compulsion in the religion is لا تكره أحدا على الدخول في الإسلام بالقتال حتى يأتيكم الإذن. Do not compel anyone to enter into Islam by fighting or by warfare until the permission comes. That's the meaning. Until the permission comes. Maybe one would say, where it says in the ayah until the permission comes. So you're going to say, this is the tafsir. Tafsir is not just by translating the words one by one. ثم جاءهم الإذن ثم جاءهم الإذن بالقتال. Then the permission to fight came. فنسخت هذه الآية بآيات القتال. And therefore, this verse was abrogated by the verses of fighting, yani the verses of permitting fighting, sanctioning fighting. وقال بعضهم في آية لا إكراه في الدين. And others, they said about this verse. So here's another way to explain this verse that one would translate as there is no compulsion in the religion. أي أنت يا محمد لا تستطيع أن تكره قلوبهم على الإيمان. It means you, O Muhammad, are unable to compel their hearts to believe. Yeah, but that's not a denial that you could compel the limbs, though. What we cannot compel is the hearts. We have no power to compel the hearts, no matter what you do. But you can compel the limbs, and then under the right circumstances, the limbs will be compelled. وقال بعضهم أي ليس لك أن تكره الذين يدفعون الجزية ما داموا يدفعون الجزية ويخضعون لسلطة الإسلام. And some said, here's a third interpretation. You do not have the right to compel those who pay the jizya as long as they pay the jizya and humble themselves to the the Sultanate of Islam. أي يلتزمون الشروط, meaning as long as they adhere to the conditions. The conditions of the jizya which is a bill that is charged to the non-Muslim citizens of the Islamic State. Then, when someone is a non-Muslim citizen of an Islamic State, of the Islamic State, had there been a caliphate, that non-Muslim citizen is called dhimmi. Dhimmi. So this dhimmi, he is not compelled. Rather, he agrees to pay the jizya and adhere to the conditions. Besides paying this jizya, which is a bill, not a tax, is very cheap. It's cheaper than the zakat and it's cheaper than any taxes they would have been paying under a non-Muslim rule. But along with that, there's other conditions like they would not be allowed to talk bad about Islam and other conditions. Then they would live in the Muslim caliphate and they would not be harmed. They would not be harassed. Yani, no one's going to take their money. They just need to pay that jizya though. And yani, they're not going to be able to do all kinds of haram stuff they would probably want to do. So as long as they are paying that jizya, then they are not fought and they are not forced. Those are citizens. وَأَمَّا قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And as for what God said, exalted is He. وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ جَمِيعًا. And had your Lord willed, O Muhammad, everyone on earth would have believed entirely. أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Is it then you who shall compel the people so that they or until they become believers? وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تُؤْمِنَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. You will be the one to compel the people to be believers, O Muhammad, and no soul would believe except by God's permission. What does this mean, Yani? Uh, does this verse prove the point that they want to use it for? Those who say the Muslims only fight defensively, not offensively. Does this verse prove their point? فقال القاضي ابن عطية الإشبيلي في تفسيره. The judge Ibn Atiyah al-Ishbili, he said in his interpretation book, في سورة يونس, in the interpretation of chapter of Prophet Yunus, ما نصه, quote, المعنى أن هذا الذي تقدم إنما كان جميعه بقضاء الله عليهم ومشيئته فيهم. The meaning is that what has been presented, uh, it merely is that all of it is by God's destining and His will. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَكَانَ الْجَمِيعُ مُؤْمِنًا. And had Allah willed, everyone would be a believer. فلا تأسف أنت يا محمد على كفر من لم يؤمن بك. So, don't grieve, O Muhammad, over the blasphemy of those who do not believe in you. وَادْعُوا, and pray, make dua. وَلَا عَلَيْكَ, and it's not against you, O Muhammad. There's no sin on you, there's no shortcoming on you that they didn't believe in you. Yeah, you have delivered the message as you were supposed to, completely and clearly. فَالْأَمْرُ مَحْتُومٌ. The matter is something of destiny. أَفَتُرِيدُ أَنْتَ أَن تُكْرِهَ النَّاسَ بِإِدْخَالِ الْإِيمَانِ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. O Muhammad, do you want to compel the people by putting faith into their hearts? Yani, that's something he's not able to do. وَتَضْطَرَّهُمْ إِلَى ذَلِكَ, and then force them to be believers. وَاللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ قَدْ شَاءَ غَيْرَهُ. Is that what you want to do, O Muhammad? Though God, invincible and great, has willed otherwise? انتهى. End quote. فتبين أن معنى الآية أن الرسول عليه السلام ليس عليه أن يكره القلوب. And so it became clear that the meaning of the verse is that the messenger, may peace be upon him, is unable to force the hearts. لأن القلب أمره مخفي, because the heart, its matter is hidden. فليس على الرسول أن يكره الناس حتى تصير قلوبهم مؤمنة. And so the messenger is unable to force the people such that their hearts would believe. لأن هذا لا يملكه الرسول. Because the messenger doesn't possess this. He does not have the power to make hearts believe. وليس في استطاعته, he does not have the ability. إنما الذي في استطاعته صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يدعوهم إلى الإسلام. Merely what is in his ability, may peace and blessings be upon him, is calling the people to Islam. ويقاتلهم على ذلك, and it is in his ability to fight them over it. So if he fought them over it, he's still not going to be able to force their hearts to believe. ويقاتلهم على ذلك إلى أن يسلموا, and he also is able to fight them over that until they embrace Islam. بأن يتشهدوا, by saying the Shahada. أو إلى أن يدفعوا الجزية, or until they pay the jizya. In adalu ila al-jizya, if that's the option that they choose. Yani the Muslims are going to tell them become Muslims, not pay the jizya. Become Muslims, don't pay the jizya. Become Muslims. But if they didn't want to become Muslims and they qualify to pay the jizya, then if they take that option, then they will pay the jizya, and then the Muslims won't fight them, and the Muslims won't impose their religion on them. That's if there were a caliphate. Now there's no caliphate, so this is not something achievable. But that's why they're going to always fight to keep the caliphate broken as much as they can. 'Cause if there were a caliphate again, then uh, so فهذا الذي كلفه الرسول. This is what the messenger has been charged with. Meaning, the messenger is not charged with compelling the hearts. The messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his duty is to call people to Islam. And his duty was, when he got the permission, to fight for Islam also. And before he got the permission, it wasn't permissible for him to fight, and it wasn't permissible for the Muslims to fight. So they had to bear with the persecution. And we know what they were doing to the Muslims before the Muslims got the permission to fight. So people will tell stories about how Muslims were fighting, waging war. What they were doing to the Muslims before the Muslims got the permission to fight. That's why when the Muslims, when they first got the permission to fight, they had such a grudge, big grudge, and they put a mad spanking on those people in that first battle, and in all the battles that came. But in the battle of Uhud, there was the issue with the archers that you know about. فهذا الذي كلفه الرسول. This is what the messenger was charged with. لأن هذا عمل الظاهر, because this is the outside. Yani, the messenger was dealing with the outside, not the state of the heart. فظهر بهذا أنه لم يقل أحد من أهل العلم إن معنى الآية يدل على حرية الرأي والفكر. And so it became clear by this that not a single one amongst the people of knowledge said that the meaning of the verse proves freedom of opinion, free thought. Uh, but those are some buzzwords, though, as people say, buzzwords. Freedom of opinion, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. These are like buzzwords that those people hardly believe in, really, and that they're not really outraged over too. Fake outrage. وإن الكافر لا يكره على الدخول في الإسلام. And none of the people of knowledge said that a kafir is not compelled to enter into Islam. Never. Is never compelled. Yani, in wartime, if they ran up on him, then he might just say the shahada to save himself. You know about that hadith when they came across someone, some of the companions. And when he saw them, the Muslim soldiers, he said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And then one of the companions killed him anyway. The messenger was very upset with him for that. Alayhi salatu wassalam. That man said, I thought he said it just to protect himself. The Prophet ﷺ told him, did you split his heart apart to see inside of his heart? So our job in this realm here is that when someone says the Shahada, we're just going to deem him as a Muslim. We're not going to investigate his heart. We cannot. Even at the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, there was a governor who was making people who embraced Islam still pay the jizya. So when ibn Abdul Aziz caught wind of that, he talked to that governor. So he told that governor, do not make people who embrace Islam pay the jizya. So the governor said, well, I fear they are just showing that they are embracing Islam just so they don't have to pay the jizya. So that governor, he had a suggestion. He said, how about if we want to make sure that they really embraced Islam, how about we check to see if they're circumcised? This is where his mind was. How about we check to see if they're circumcised? And then if we see they got circumcised, then we're going to know they became Muslims. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, who's going to do this job? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. He's going to put some officers for that. Well, what did Umar ibn Abdul Aziz say? He said, Allah did not send the messenger to check to see if the people are circumcised. Anyone who embraces Islam, do not take the jizya from him. So he forced that governor to stop taking the jizya from whoever embraced Islam. And because of that, many people embraced Islam. And if someone were to say, well, only from the outside, we're going to say, okay, we don't know their hearts. And when they do that from the outside, you don't know. Really, this increases still the the dissolving of blasphemy. Makes the blasphemy still dissolve more and more. If some of those people are only showing that they are Muslims, then their case is going to be that whatever kufr they have, they are hiding it. So the kufr is being extinguished and suppressed. And then the generations who come after them are not going to be under their influence, the influence of their blasphemy. Only if they find a way to display their blasphemy. And otherwise, if they stay like that, then eventually, yani, either they're going to stop acting and their kufr is going to come out, or they're going to become sincere and really be Muslims after they were only pretending, or they're going to die like that and their kufr is going to go away and Islam will persist on. فَنَحْنُ إِنْ رَأَيْنَا مُسْلِمًا يُرِيدُ الْإِنْتِحَارِ. And so had we seen a Muslim who wants to commit suicide, بأن يرمي بنفسه من شاهق جبل, by wanting to leap from a mountain cliff, أو بأن يرمي نفسه في البحر, or by wanting to jump into the sea, ليغرق, so that he would drown, أو بأن يرمي بنفسه في النار, or ليحترق, or by wanting to throw himself into fire so that he would burn. نسعى لإنقاذه من الهلاك. Don't we strive to save him from this doom? فبالأولى أن نسعى لإنقاذ الكافر من الكفر. So more so must we strive to save a blasphemer from blasphemy. Subhanallah. That's a compassionate statement there. But it's just that the kafir likes his blasphemy and wants to stay on there, so he's willing to fight for it. So he's harming himself. الذي يؤدي به إلى الخلود في نار جهنم إن مات عليه. That blasphemy, that will lead to that blasphemer staying in hell forever if he dies upon it. وأولى ما ذكر في تفسير لا إكراه في الدين القول بأن المعنى لا تستطيعون أن تكرهوا القلوب. The best of what was mentioned about the interpretation of La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in the religion, is the saying that what it means is that you are unable to force the hearts. حتى تصير مؤمنة. You cannot force the hearts to become believers. ويؤيد ذلك قوله. And what supports that is another verse of the Quran. Yani, what comes right after that? قد تبين الرشد من الغي. The guidance has become clear, has become distinct from the ignorance, which is the misguidance. أي أن الرسول بلغ وبين طريق الإسلام. This means that the messenger delivered and he clarified the way of Islam, الذي هو الرشد, that way which is the guidance. فَمَنْ سَمِعَ وَقَبِلَ تَبْلِيغَهُ. So anyone who heard and accepted his delivery, فَقَدْ اهْتَدَى, then he is guided. أي نجا من الضلال, meaning he has been saved from misguidance.